All right, so we kind of give you some big picture of some of the elements of Gen AI. What we want to do in this slide is just give you a little bit more specific, tangible examples. So when we talk about managing the data lifecycle, one of the big steps in preparing for any AI project is being able to curate the data and find the right data. Now, in prior years, it has typically been the problem that folks can't find the right data or can't get enough of the right data. But there are scenarios now where people have been collecting data for years and they're in such a data-rich environment, they don't know what they have and they don't know how to find what they have or what they need. So curation plays a really big role with that, and Gen AI offers new ways of looking inside that data. So you can use Gen AI to go over that data, do some initial metadata extraction, or figure out what's inside the image to find the right images that you're looking for, and I'll give you an example later on. Another step in the data curation process is because teams have been building machine learning and AI projects for so long, they now have a ground truth pool. And that ground truth is large enough that they may need to look over it again and see what's going on in there. So one of the steps of data curation is being able to understand, okay, if we have a representation of this image or this item, how can we see that if we collect new data, is it the same as what we have or is it different from what we have? And kind of hand in hand with that, because AI involves a bunch of different teams who span various disciplines, we have to integrate the data that we get and curate with the rest of the ML tech stack. So you want to connect different teams, remove those silos, and be able to seamlessly integrate the processes back and forth between them. So once you've curated the data, Sahil will talk a little bit more about the pre-labeling, but when you have that environment, you then need to connect it to your training workflows and connect it back into labeling, because machine learning and AI itself is always iterative. Can you share, Sahil, what have you seen with pre-labeling, and highlight some of the color that you have there?
Yeah, absolutely. So we in fact do have a case study later on that will go a little bit more into detail of how we achieved pre-labeling for a large scale 2D annotations project. So we can go into that. But pre-labeling, it's basically table stakes now, right? I mean, as in what Yasmin was saying, there is so much curation of the ground truth these days that you essentially almost have a pre-label, either a generic model that works across a particular subject area, or a specific model that you can train, with your data, to do pre-labeling. I mean, we have found it that pre-labeling works almost guaranteed when the data is simple. There are no, edge cases or subjectivity when it comes to understanding the sort of semantics in the data or the actual objects and their relationships to each other in the data. It's pretty straightforward. But when it comes to medical imaging or some unstructured scenario data, it does get difficult to do pre-labeling. At that point, you need to do some custom training pipelines, and then kind of do a lot of fine tuning before you can use pre-labeling for your production pipelines. My favorite part of this slide, and we kind of added that a little bit later on, was integrating data with your ML tech stack. I think this is extremely crucial. I've seen in quite a few projects where you take care of your whole pipeline all the way from your data collection, curation, ingestion to creating your annotated data sets. But if that bridge between how you're kind of using your training pipelines with your data sets, that's not connected, then that basically fragments a very important part of the whole workflow, and that kind of really sets the actual engineering teams back in kind of experimenting with the data set and how what the impact of that is with the models they're training. So that's a very important part of that. I'll share a little bit about data curation when Yasmin actually has her use case. I have a couple of points to add there, but hopefully this makes sense to the team here. These were the three main pillars that we wanted to bring out as tangible case studies, and how Gen AI or robotic process automation is helping us to drive them forward with human in the loop. All right, let's move forward to the next one.